Update 4. After my sister locked me in the freezing basement for 14 hours, my mother said, "Stop overreacting. It was just a prank." But when the doctor checked me out and saw the security footage, she said something that left them freezing. The hardware store had security cameras. Mallory paid cash, but she'd also bought a kitchen timer on the same receipt. The timer was never found. Detective Garza figured she'd used it to track how long I'd been down there. She laid it out for me. Mallory wasn't just jealous of my promotion. She was terrified of it. A junior partner with access to financial records. A brother about to review their father's accounts. An accountant who would absolutely notice a fraudulent loan taken out in Dad's name. Who would spot irregular credit inquiries. Who would start asking questions that Mallory couldn't answer. The basement wasn't about stealing my thunder at Thanksgiving dinner. It was about stopping me from doing my job. If I died down there or even been incapacitated for weeks, Mallory would have had time. Time to destroy the loan documents. Time to close the hidden accounts. Time to fix the church records before anyone looked too closely. Time to make sure the one person in the family who could read financial statements never got the chance. The charges got upgraded to attempted murder. They added kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and identity theft. Her prank defense fell apart. The fallout was immediate and ugly. Judith came to the hospital the day after the upgraded charges. Not to check on me, to demand I drop everything. "Think about what you're doing to this family," she said. "Your sister has children, a reputation. You're going to destroy all of that over a misunderstanding?" I stared at her. My fingers were bandaged. My toes were bandaged. A machine was helping me breathe. She was looking up cold exposure timelines and asthma risks for weeks before locking me in there. She stole $42,000 using Dad's identity. "That's not a misunderstanding. You're exaggerating. You always exaggerate." "You," Harper stood up slowly from the corner. "Get out," Harper said. Not loud, just cold. Judith sputtered. Said she had every right to visit her own son. "Yeah, I get it. Your daughter tried to kill your son to cover up financial fraud and you're here defending her. And if you don't leave this room in the next 10 seconds, I'm calling security and having you removed." Judith left. Called me ungrateful on her way out. My father filed for divorce 3 days later. 34 years of marriage. Done. He told me later that watching the security footage had broken something in him. Seeing Mallory check that lock. Seeing Judith immediately take her side. The next few months were chaos. I went through 3 surgeries. Lost the tips of 2 toes on my left foot and half of 1 finger on my right hand to frostbite. The doctor said the wet concrete floor was the killer. My socks had soaked through from the damp near the sump pit and 14 hours of cold, wet feet on stone did the damage. Spent months in physical therapy learning to walk properly again. My lung function dropped permanently. I went from moderate asthma to severe. The investigation expanded as detectives followed the money. Total damage across all her schemes. Over $125,000 in fraud, the loan in Dad's name, the church skimming, the credit cards in Boyd's name, an insurance claim for storm damage that never happened. Boyd filed for divorce during the trial preparation. He came to visit me in the hospital, sat in the chair next to my bed, and said he was sorry. "I think she hated you because you could see through her act." Boyd said, "Everyone else bought it. You didn't. And when you became the guy who could actually prove what she was doing, she lost it." He got full custody, moved the kids to Indiana, cut all contact with Judith. Caleb appointed himself my unofficial bodyguard during recovery, drove me to appointments, screened calls, physically blocked Judith when she tried to show up at our apartment once. The trial took 8 months to reach. The prosecution had everything. Pattern evidence from my childhood, the hypothermia searches, the deadbolt receipt, the security footage, Dr. Reeves testifying about how close I'd come to dying, expert witnesses on premeditation, and the financial evidence showing motive, painting a picture of a woman so deep in fraud that murder seemed like the logical next step. Mallory's defense tried everything. It was a prank. She'd forgotten. She had anxiety and depression and wasn't thinking clearly. She'd been provoked by my arrogance about the promotion. Her lawyer, some guy named Pendleton, who specialized in getting wealthy suburban clients off on reduced charges, argued that the hypothermia searches were just curiosity, that the deadbolt was for child safety, that the timing was coincidental. The prosecution put Boyd on the stand. He testified about discovering the hidden credit cards after the arrest, about the forged signatures on loan applications, about years of financial deception he'd been completely blind to. He broke down twice. First, when he described finding the statements. Second, when the prosecutor asked if he'd noticed any warning signs, he said Mallory had been sleeping poorly for weeks before Thanksgiving. Kept checking her phone. Snapped at the kids over nothing. He thought it was holiday stress. The church treasurer testified about the fundraiser irregularities. Showed the donation records versus the deposit records. $18,000 that went somewhere other than where it was supposed to go. Dad testified about the loan he'd never applied for. $42,000 borrowed against his name for a business that didn't exist. His voice cracked when the prosecutor asked how it felt to learn his daughter had stolen his identity. The jury watched all the evidence. They connected the dots the same way Detective Garza had. Mallory wasn't jealous. She was cornered. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and identity theft. 10 to 15 years. The fraud and forgery charges from Dad's loan got rolled into a plea deal that added restitution requirements on top of the prison time. Judith screamed in the courtroom. Called me a monster. Said I destroyed the family. Security had to escort her out. She tried to lunge at the prosecutor on her way through the doors. Harper waited until after the sentencing to make her move. See, this is why I married her. During the trial and divorce proceedings, she'd been quietly building a file. Discovery documents gave her a roadmap of financial irregularities. Boyd shared everything he'd found. Bank statements, tax returns, credit card charges that didn't match anything in their household budget. Harper cross-referenced it all. The detective work had exposed the major frauds, but Harper found the smaller ones. The patterns that didn't rise to criminal charges, but absolutely violated civil agreements and organizational policies. She bought a whiteboard, kept it in the spare room, lines connecting names to accounts to dates. She'd add to it after the kids went to bed, building cases that prosecutors couldn't touch because they were civil and organizational. She found additional evidence of the church fundraiser skimming. Enough documentation to ensure Mallory would be formally expelled and required to pay full restitution. She found enough irregularities in the insurance claim to trigger a full fraud investigation by Boyd's former employer. They wanted their money back, plus damages, plus legal fees. She found the trail connecting the identity theft loan to additional credit inquiries Mallory had made in Dad's name. Minor stuff individually, but collectively enough to generate a formal identity theft report that would follow Mallory forever. Harper submitted anonymous tips to 3 separate entities: the Church Finance Committee, the insurance company's fraud hotline, and the bank's security department. Enough specific details that they'd have to investigate, but nothing traceable back to her. "What did you do?" I asked when she told me. "Just pointed people in the right direction," she said, not looking up from her laptop. "They did their own audits. I just gave them reasons to look." Then she waited. Final update. "After my sister locked me in the freezing basement for 14 hours, my mother said, 'Stop overreacting. It was just a prank.' But when the doctor checked me out and saw the security footage, she said something that left them freezing." The church launched an investigation that led to Mallory being formally expelled from the congregation. Her entire social network evaporated. The women she'd brunched with, the families she'd carpooled with, all gone overnight. The insurance company filed civil charges. They wanted their money back, plus damages. The bank reported the identity theft to law enforcement. Another brick in the wall. Judith's spiral accelerated. Without Mallory to worship, and without my father to provide financial stability, she was lost. The divorce settlement had been fair, but not generous. She'd gotten the house, which she couldn't afford to maintain. She'd gotten half the retirement accounts, which she burned through in 2 years on legal fees for Mallory's appeals. The appeals went nowhere. The evidence was too strong. The footage too damning. Every motion got denied. Every argument got rejected. Mallory's lawyer eventually stopped returning Judith's calls. Probably because Judith had stopped being able to pay him. She started calling me again despite the restraining order. Crying about how alone she was, how nobody understood what she was going through, how I'd torn apart everything she'd built. I blocked every number she used. Changed my phone number. Eventually, she gave up or ran out of phones or both. Caleb moved out, eventually got his life back together. Started dating a woman named Ilea who ran a food truck specializing in gourmet burritos. They sent us Christmas cards now. Last year's featured Caleb wearing a Santa hat and holding a burrito. It's framed in our hallway. Harper and I relocated to Pittsburgh. New city, fresh start. I took a position at a smaller firm. Less money, less prestige, but also less stress. We bought a house, got a dog, a ridiculous golden retriever named Walter, who's afraid of his own shadow, but acts tough when squirrels are involved. 2 years after the trial, we had our son. Named him Owen. My father visits twice a year. He's softer now, but present in a way he never was when I was growing up. Mallory served 8 years. Good behavior, completed programs, model prisoner on paper, got out when I was 37. I prepared for this. Had the restraining order renewed annually. Updated my security system. Gave her photo to my office building, my kids' school, my gym. The first year after her release was quiet. I heard through Boyd that Mallory had moved to Arizona. Gotten a job at a call center. Was living in a small apartment and keeping her head down. Then Judith died. Congestive heart failure. Years of stress and poor health catching up. She'd been alone in that house she couldn't afford, surrounded by photos of a family that no longer existed. A neighbor found her after 3 days. Mallory flew back for the funeral and reached out to me. Left her letter at my office address. 3 pages about how prison had changed her. How she'd found faith. How she finally understood what she'd done. She wanted a chance to explain. I read it twice, then burned it. She'd become irrelevant. A footnote in a story that had moved on without her. At the funeral, Mallory and I were on opposite sides of the room. Gene didn't come. Said his goodbyes had been said years ago. Boyd brought the kids. Teenagers now, uncomfortable in formal clothes and clearly unsure what to feel about a grandmother they barely remembered. Mallory tried to approach me after the service. Said she just wanted 5 minutes, just wanted to apologize properly. Wanted to explain why she'd done what she did. I turned and walked away. She called after me. I kept walking. Harper was waiting in the car with the kids. She'd refused to attend, but drove me because she knew I'd need support after. When I got in, she just squeezed my hand. We drove home without discussing it. Some things don't need words. Here's where this story gets satisfying for anyone who's still reading. 6 months after Judith's funeral, Mallory made a mistake. She'd been telling people her version of events for years. How I'd set her up. How the evidence was fabricated. How she'd been wrongly convicted because I was jealous. She told this story to Boyd's new wife, Mariana. Mariana asked Boyd for the truth. He showed her everything. The footage, the phone records, the loan documents, the fraud evidence. Mariana has a large extended family and an active social media presence. She also has zero tolerance for people who lie about abuse. She posted a carefully worded account of what actually happened, complete with links to public court records, just facts. It made the rounds. Community groups, true crime forums, support networks for abuse survivors. Not national news, but wide enough that Mallory's new life in Arizona got complicated. Once HR saw a violent felony conviction and a stack of restitution orders in her background check, that job didn't survive. Her apartment complex found out. The new church she joined found out. She moved 3 times in 18 months, each place smaller and further from anywhere she'd ever lived. Boyd's oldest kid blocked her number. The middle one followed a month later. Same pattern as before, except this time she couldn't run back home. She called me screaming, saying I'd ruined her life, saying I'd never let her move on. Saying I was obsessed with destroying her. You spent weeks planning to kill me so I wouldn't find out you'd stolen over $100,000 from Dad, Boyd, the church, and the insurance company. You don't get to move on. You don't get to rebuild. You get to live with what you did for the rest of your life. I hung up, blocked her number. That was 2 years ago. I don't know where she is now. Don't care. She's not my problem anymore. She's a cautionary tale I'll tell my kids someday about what happens when greed and entitlement go unchecked for decades.